"Get out of the car, bitch, now." The door is violently opened. Her scream is immediately muffled by a forceful hand. Hands, where I can see them. A voice barks. Another shouts. She is resisting. Her pleading "no, please" is cut short by the sickening crack of bone striking the car frame. Her breath stolen from her lungs. A voice growls, "Shut your mouth or I will break your teeth down your throat." Boots scrape on the rough asphalt. Handcuffs rattle ominously like chains in the darkness. Flickering fluorescent light from the convenience store sign across the street paints her blood in cold, intermittent flashes of white. "Hold her still," one commands, while another yells. She is kicking, followed by the order, "Hit her harder." A muffled cry escapes her. Her voice, now strangled, is begging, but their cruel laughter cuts it brutally in half. "Think you are tough, huh? You are nothing but trash," one taunts. Another commands, "Take her phone." No cameras tonight. On the cracked pavement, her phone screen glows. Her father's name pulses with each incoming call, one after another, buzzing insistently and remaining unanswered. Fists pound flesh. A breathless silence follows each blow. Then a cough is heard. Then another cry escapes. Then there is nothing. She is not moving, one voice states. Another orders, "Check her pulse." A different voice insists, "She is fine." She is faking it. Then a quiet "No." She is gone. For a moment a silence heavier than any gunshot hangs in the air. The world seems to hold its breath. A fluorescent bulb overhead buzzes, stuttering a shadows stretch across her lifeless face, blood trailing slowly into the gutter. One officer wipes his hands, his voice low, almost casual, as he says, "No one is going to believe her story anyway." The night swallows her last breath. Her phone still vibrates, his name still glowing on the cracked screen, and then only silence remains. The silence lingers ominously. The buzzing phone continues. The call remains unanswered. Then the scene cuts to daylight. The sound of a shop bell jingling is heard. The smell of coffee, detergent, dust, and freshly opened cardboard boxes fills the air. Her laugh rises above it, all warm, real, alive. "Mr. Daniels, you know you cannot keep sneaking extra lottery tickets past me," she teases an old man at the counter. He grins back, guilty, handing her a crumpled $5 bill. She is life in motion. She wears a sharp uniform shirt, sleeves rolled just enough to work. Her hair is tied back, practical but elegant. She moves between aisles like she owns not just the store, but the air itself. Customers greet her by name. Teenagers linger near the soda fridge just to hear her laugh. Mothers thank her for setting aside diapers when stock runs low. She never forgets her face, never forgets her voice. At home, she hums while stirring a pot. Garlic and onions sizzle in oil, steam clouding the kitchen window. Her father sits at the table, his big hands folded, the weight of a man used to power, violence, silence. To the world, he is a name whispered with fear. But here, in this kitchen, he is just Dad. He watches her carefully portion out food onto 2 plates, always giving him the bigger serving. He notices her habit, leaving her own plate a little light, just in case he is still hungry. He does not say thank you. He never needs to. She knows. Later, she leans her head against his shoulder as they sit on the worn couch. The television glows faintly, but neither of them pays attention. His arm rests heavy around her. Her eyes close. The world outside could burn and he would not move because she is the only thing worth protecting. In the mornings, before she leaves, he saves leftovers in the refrigerator, tucked neatly in containers. He never admits it, but he checks her car before she drives. Old habits from old wars. At night, when the store quiets, she hums while locking up. The metallic click of the key in the door, the shuffle of her shoes on linoleum, the glow of the security monitor behind the counter. Cameras blink in corners, little red lights like tired eyes. Outside, shadows sometimes linger too long near the dumpsters. She brushes them off, just neighbors, just city noise. She pulls her jacket tight and hums louder. This is her world, ordinary, simple, beautiful in its repetition, yet the edges fray. A news report mutters from a radio, another incident, another name lost in static. Her father stiffens when he hears it. She changes the station. "Not tonight," she says, smiling, but her eyes dart away. A patrol car slows once when she is walking home. Windows down, laughter drifting from inside. She walks faster, keys gripped in her hand. Nothing happens. Not yet. But in the kitchen, later that night, her father notices she double-checks the lock twice instead of once. She does not explain why. He does not ask. He only notices the silence stretching longer than it should. Still, life carries on. A birthday cake for a coworker, a spilled soda cleaned with laughter, a warm hug with her father before bed. These moments feel unbreakable, carved into routine. But the cameras keep blinking, the shadows keep stretching, and outside, in the dark corners of the street, someone always watches too long. For her, life is still laughter and light. For him, it is still the fragile illusion that his past will not come for her. Neither of them knows that everything ordinary is already borrowed time. The cameras kept blinking, the shadows kept stretching, and then one night they stopped being harmless. It began simple, ordinary. The store closed late, a long shift, shelves restocked, register balanced. She yawned as she locked the door, humming to herself like always. The neon sign flickered above, buzzing faintly, painting her face in fractured pink light. She tugged her jacket tighter against the cold and stepped into the empty street. The city was too quiet, no music, no dogs barking, no traffic, just her shoes against the pavement and the low hum of street lamps. She noticed headlights in her rear view, too close, too steady, a patrol car. At first she told herself it was nothing, they were just passing, but the car did not pass. It followed. Every turn she made, they made. Every time she slowed, they slowed. Her hands gripped the wheel tighter, her breath quickened. Then the red and blue lights flashed behind her. A siren whooped once, short, sharp, like a laugh in the dark. She pulled over, heart pounding. She rolled down her window with shaking hands. The cop's flashlight blinded her. License and registration. Officer, what is wrong? I do not ask questions, just do it. She fumbled for her wallet, her voice catching. The second officer circled the car slowly, tapping on the trunk, a predator's rhythm. You've been drinking tonight? No, I just got off work. Do not lie to me. I am not lying, I swear. The silence stretched too long. The first officer leaned closer, breath sour, words quiet but sharp. Step out of the car. Her chest tightened. I did not do anything. His hand slammed against the hood. I said get out. She flinched, tears already hot in her eyes, and unbuckled. The night air cut cold as she stepped out. Gravel crunched under her shoes. Her hands shook as she raised them. Against the car now. Please. I did not. A shove. Her chest hit cold metal. Boots scraped closer. A belt unbuckled. No, please. Please do not shut up. Her voice cracked, strangled. Their laughter drowned it. One grabbed her hair, slamming her cheek against the hood. Metal stung her skin. Her muffled cries blurred into the hum of the idling engine. Resisting arrest, huh? Teach her a lesson. Breath in her ear. The stink of sweat and leather. Fingers bruising her wrists. The night swallowed her words. Her phone lit up inside the car, her father's name glowing, buzzing again and again, but no one heard. Fragments her breath. Their fists, her sobs. The sound of a zipper. The silence after. When she tried to scream, the back of a hand silenced it. Her teeth split her lip. Blood spread across the hood, smeared by her cheek as they pressed harder. One officer muttered, almost casual, she is not moving much anymore. Another voice, colder, does not matter, just finish it. A choke, a final cry cut short, then nothing. Her last sight, asphalt glittering with broken glass, and the red-blue lights blinking rhythmically against the darkness. Her body slipped, sliding down the side of the car, blood dripping onto the gravel. The silence was unbearable. Even the siren seemed to hush. She is done. Shit. Nothing happened tonight. Understand? Yeah, nothing. They dragged her body off the road, leaving streaks in the dirt. A boot pressed her phone deeper into the car seat until the glowing screen dimmed. Her father's name still shone faintly, buzzing one last time before cutting off into dead silence. At home, he sat at the kitchen table, big hands holding the phone, eyes locked on the glowing name. He called again, and again, each time, the ring, then the hollow click of voicemail. Come on, baby. Pick up. He whispered it once. Then again, the silence on the other end burned louder with each unanswered call. The television murmured in the background some news anchor talking about budget cuts and city crime. He did not hear it. He only stared at the phone, at her name, at the glowing screen that never changed. He told himself she was just driving, just late, just tired. But deep down, something inside him shifted. A cold weight pressing on his chest, a kind of dread you do not shake off. The calls went unanswered. The silence grew heavier. The shadows outside his window stretched longer, and somewhere, on the edge of town, her blood cooled under blinking lights. The phone still buzzed in his hand, her name glowing, but she never answered. By morning, the story had already been rewritten. A short statement went out before sunrise. Routine traffic stop. Suspect resisted. Officers responded with necessary force. Suspect expired from unrelated medical complication. No names, no details. Just a line of text in the city blotter, buried between budget meetings and weather updates. At the precinct, the dashcam footage was labeled corrupted. The file would not open. A red error screen blinked. Data unreadable. The bot both disconnected due to technical malfunction. Not 1 second of audio, not one flicker of video survived. At least, not officially. In the district attorney's office, a secretary typed while sipping burnt coffee. The words rolled out cold, mechanical, unfounded allegation. Officers followed procedure. No further investigation warranted. Autopsy scheduled. Autopsy falsified. The coroner, an old man with grey hands and a tired smile, signed his name under a report that scrubbed her story clean. Bruises reclassified as old injuries. Broken ribs listed as possible fall. Toxicology slipped in a false entry. Traces of methamphetamine. A lie to smudge her memory, to smear her in silence. The father sat across from them in a sterile office. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, too bright, too clean. A laminated poster on the wall read, "Integrity, Justice, Service." He stared at it until the words blurred. A detective cleared his throat. "She resisted, sir. Officers did what they had to do." His jaw clenched. "My daughter never resisted anyone in her life." A shrug. Papers shuffled. The case folder closed with a hollow click. Every question he asked returned the same answer. Silence wrapped in bureaucracy. No emotion, no humanity, just clipped phrases, memorized lines, rehearsed indifference. "We understand your grief. It is a tragedy. But the evidence is clear, clear." What evidence? There was none. None but her body, cold on a slab, stripped of dignity. When he demanded to see her, they led him to the morgue. White tiles, stainless steel, the smell of disinfectant sharp in his nose. She lay there, still covered to her chin, her lips split, swollen, purple bruises fading into pale skin. They told him those were not new. He knew better. He touched her hand, ice, his world collapsing, yet all around him the silence of paperwork rustled on. Outside the courthouse, protests began small at first. Neighbors holding candles, chanting her name, justice for her. But the media called it disturbances. The paper ran a headline, "Store manager dies in altercation with police. Drugs suspected." Her name dragged through the mud. Her memory suffocated beneath lies. And still the father sat at his table each night, the phone in front of him, staring at the last call. The glow of her name frozen on the cracked screen. No death, no body count, no report that told the truth. Only silence. And silence louder than screams. The machine moved fast. Faster than grief. Faster than rage. Within days the story was cemented, locked, buried. She resisted. She was on drugs. The officers were cleared. Case closed. But in his chest, the truth burned like acid. He had built his life in shadows, in blood and silence. He had sworn to keep her away from it. But now the system had taken her, erased her, twisted her into a headline, and all he had left was silence. The silence before something breaks. And all he had left was silence. The silence before something breaks. At first it was small, nights without sleep, pacing, the sound of the refrigerator hum drilling into his skull, the tick of the wall clock stretching into eternity. He tried sitting at the table where she used to eat. 2 plates, 2 forks. Out of habit, he poured her water and sat it across from him, but the chair stayed empty. Every time he blinked he saw her head tilted, laughing, reaching for bread. And when he opened his eyes, only silence remained. He stopped eating, stopped shaving. His phone never left the table. Screen cracked, her name still frozen on the last call. He tapped it, over and over. Redial, ring, voicemail, again, and again. At night, he heard her. A whisper in the hall, a laugh from the kitchen, the faint sound of humming. He would stumble into the dark, following it, heart pounding only to find shadows, blinking lights, and silence. He sat in her room. The faint smell of perfume lingered on her pillow, clothes folded neatly, waiting for a tomorrow that would never come. He ran his hand across the dresser, trembling fingers brushing against her favorite bracelet. He pressed it to his chest until his ribs ached. The empire he built, warehouses, bars, debts, paid in blood, meant nothing now. Men still called him boss. They still brought him money, reports, whispers. He barely heard them. He would sit in meetings, staring past their faces, nodding at words he could not remember. One night, a man finished explaining a shipment and asked, "What do you want done?" The father blinked, confused. For the first time in decades, he had no answer. Power without her was hollow. Territory, respect, fear, all of it ash in his mouth. What use was ruling streets when he could not keep his daughter safe on the walk home? Sleep came rarely. When it did, it betrayed him. Dreams twisted into hallucinations, her face pale, her lips blue, eyes open and glassy. Sometimes she whispered, "Why did you not protect me?" Sometimes she just stared, silent, while patrol lights blinked red and blue across her skin. He would wake gasping, drenched in sweat, fists clenched as though ready to fight shadows. The paranoia grew. He closed curtains, unplugged phones, smashed mirrors. He told himself they were watching police cars idling too long on his block, unfamiliar men at the corner store, cameras where there had not been cameras before. Maybe it was true, maybe not. It did not matter. He could not breathe without feeling eyes on him. He whispered her name in the dark, Alina, over and over, as if speaking it could summon her back. His voice cracked into silence. The silence always swallowed it. His morality fractured. He had sworn she would never know his world. He kept the Mafia away from her, swore his hands dirty so hers could stay clean. But now that promise mocked him. He had played by his own code, kept her out, and the system killed her anyway. In the quiet hours, pacing the kitchen, he thought of the cops. Their voices replayed in his head. She resisted. Officers did what they had to do. He slammed his fist against the table until wood cracked. He saw their faces in the dark even if he had never seen them in daylight. In his mind, their laughter echoed, their boots scraped, their cuffs clinked. He imagined their smirks as they erased her name with falsified words. He wanted vengeance, but he also wanted peace, and both were impossible. One night he poured a glass of whiskey, hands trembling. He stared at the gun on the counter, heavy, silent. He lifted it, pressed it against his temple. For a moment he thought this was the only way to end the silence, the only way to be with her again. But then, in the corner of the room, the television flickered. A news segment, candlelight vigils, neighbors chanting her name, a mural painted on the side of the store, her smile larger than life, strangers holding signs, justice for her. He lowered the gun. Slowly the chants echoed in his ears. Long after the television went black, he realized something then. They wanted him broken, silent, alone. But silence was a choice, and silence was the one thing he had left to break. He whispered again, but this time not in despair. Alina. The name hung in the air like a vow. Outside, in the street, a patrol car crawled past, headlights sweeping across his window. He stood there, motionless, watching. His breathing slowed. The paranoia remained, but beneath it, something harder began to form. Not peace, not acceptance. Something else, something waiting. But before he moved, before he struck, the city gave him glimpses of the men who stole her, fragments, pieces of their lives. The faces behind the boots, the fists, the laughter. One sat in a bar most nights, hunched over whiskey like it was the only thing keeping his lungs working. His badge still clipped to his belt, shirt untucked, sweat bleeding into cotton. He never looked anyone in the eye. The bartender stopped asking questions long ago. The man would drink until words slurred, then mutter under his breath. She would not shut up. Had to shut her up, over and over like a prayer turned poison. Sometimes he saw her face in the bottom of the glass. He would slam it down, shattering, cutting his own hand without noticing. The blood mixed with whiskey on the counter, but he never stopped. He drank because he could not stand the silence in his house. His wife had started sleeping in the guest room. His kids avoided his eyes. He told himself he had no choice, that he was following orders, that if he did not, the others would have turned on him. But when the whiskey burned down his throat, none of that mattered. He knew what he had done, and he knew it would never leave him. Another laughed in the locker room. He liked the sound of his own voice echoing off tile. He would slap backs, crack jokes, retell the story like it was a hunting trip. She thought she could run her mouth. Not on my watch. The others laughed nervously, glancing at each other, but no one stopped him. He wore arrogance like armor, his cruelty hidden behind bravado. He bragged because deep down he was terrified of silence. When promotions came, he was first in line. Commendations for courage under pressure. His picture hung on a wall with others, men rewarded for killing the right people, for writing the right words in reports. He grinned in that photograph, teeth sharp, eyes hollow. At home, he told his teenage son that some people just do not listen. The boy nodded, not understanding, not yet. Seeds planted in silence, seeds that grow into rot. The last barely slept. He replayed that night in his head, over and over, every second sharper than the one before. He remembered the way her voice cracked, the way her eyes went still. He had stood there, frozen, complicit, too afraid to say no, too afraid to stop it. He told himself he did not touch her, he did not hit her, he did not kill her, but he did not stop it either. And that silence was enough to damn him. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to his wife breathe beside him. He thought of confessing, of telling someone, anyone, the truth. But he never did. The system protected him, shielded him. The chief called him solid. The district attorney shook his hand. You did your job. So he said nothing, and nothing grew heavier with each passing night. Promotions, praise, silence. That was the system. Their reports matched perfectly, word for word. Their stories rehearsed until seamless. No cracks, no evidence. The district attorney made sure of it. Judges signed off, citing officer integrity. City council nodded along. Headlines followed like obedient dogs. The truth was suffocated under paperwork, her name erased from official memory. What remained was the version they wrote: a resistant suspect, a dangerous altercation, a tragic accident. The father watched from the shadows as each man lived his double life. The drinker stumbling home to an empty marriage bed, the braggart smiling for cameras, medals gleaming against his chest, the terrified one hiding in silence, praying no one saw his guilt in his eyes. They were not monsters out of stories. They were men, fathers, husbands, neighbors, men with mortgages, debts, fears, men who looked normal in daylight, men who could sit at a diner and order coffee like nothing had happened, and that made it worse, because their humanity made their cruelty colder. They all chose. He saw them not just with his eyes, but with the ache in his chest. Every detail burned into him. The drinker's shaking hand lifting glass after glass, the braggart's cruel laughter echoing across tile, the terrified one's eyes darting whenever someone mentioned her name, and in every flicker of a fluorescent bulb, in every shadow stretching across pavement, he saw her, her blood, her silence, her last breath. The city moved on, promotions handed out, badges polished, but he could not. The silence in his house grew unbearable. The whispers in the dark grew louder, and every time he closed his eyes, he saw their faces, not blurred, not abstract, faces of men who had made choices, men who still walked free, smiled free, breathed free. The world let them go, but he would not, because silence was no longer enough. Something waited, and the waiting was almost over. For weeks, he had wandered in silence, ghost in his own house, prisoner to memory. But grief had shifted. The paralysis cracked, leaving something sharper underneath. Rage without shape, a storm needing a hand to direct it. He began small. A notebook no one would find, pages ripped out, burned after writing, names scribbled in ash, notes written in cipher, old codes from darker years. His mind, once dulled by grief, sharpened into calculation. The phone calls came next, not to family, not to friends. 2 men buried in shadows, men who still owed him debts. Burner phones purchased in cash, swapped often. SIM cards broken in half, flushed down drains. Need eyes, he muttered into one voice low. On 3 uniforms, the answer came static-filled. Always knew you would come back. They did not ask why, they already knew. At night, he drove unfamiliar cars with stolen plates, engine humming low. He lingered near precincts, watched them from across the street. The drinker, stumbling into bars, the braggart laughing too loud in diners, the terrified one, sneaking cigarettes outside his house while his wife slept. He documented everything, routines, weaknesses, which door they left unlocked, which alley they cut through after work, which streets had cameras, which did not. Planning steadied him. It gave shape to grief, purpose to rage. Each note was another breath, each step a heartbeat. The silence in his house filled not with despair but with intent. But intent alone was not enough. Action had to come. The first came almost by accident. It was late, rain slicked the pavement, streetlights drowning in fog. He sat in his car, engine off, watching. The drinker had stumbled out of the bar again, coat half buttoned, bottle in his hand. He weaved toward his car, muttering. The father's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. He told himself, not tonight, not ready, not yet. But then the bottle slipped. Glass shattered on asphalt, echoing like bones breaking. The man bent to pick it up, and for a moment the father saw his daughter's face smeared on the hood of a patrol car, blood dripping, voice cut short. Something inside him snapped. He stepped out, silent, boots against wet pavement. Rain masked his approach. The drunk cop did not hear until the shadow was on him. Hey! A hand gripped his collar, slammed him against the brick wall of the bar. Breath ripped from his lungs. The bottle rolled away. Who? A fist cut the question in half. Teeth cracked. Blood sprayed. The father's face was inches away, breathing hard, eyes burning. For a second hesitation, he saw Alina, her smile, her laughter. He almost let go, almost. But then he remembered her silence, her blood cooling under blinking lights, and hesitation died. The knife was fast, close, brutal. It slid under ribs, twisted, stolen breath turning into a wet gasp. Eyes wide, hands clutching at the wound. No words, no mercy, only silence. The body crumpled into shadow. The rain washed blood into the gutter. The father stood over him, chest heaving, rain dripping from his face. His daughter's name whispered once, barely audible. Alina. Then he walked away. Point of no return. The city learned of the death in whispers. An off-duty officer found stabbed in an alley. No witnesses. No footage. The department issued a statement. Tragic mugging. Investigation ongoing. But he knew, and so did the others. The braggart laughed quieter in the locker room. Eyes darted when the name came up. The terrified one smoked more, his hands trembling. They all felt it. The silence around them was not safety anymore, it was a noose tightening. The father kept moving. Burner phones swapped again. Notes burned. Weapons cleaned and buried in places only he knew. Old contacts sent him reports. One whispered through static. They are nervous. They know someone is watching. He felt no triumph, no relief, only clarity. The line had been crossed. He was no longer just a father, not a boss, not a man mourning. He was executioner. In his house, the silence felt different now, no longer suffocating. It hummed with anticipation. He still heard her, sometimes her laugh in the hall, her hum in the kitchen, but instead of breaking him, it fueled him. Her voice was no longer just memory, it was command. He whispered to her in the dark, "I will make them remember. I will make them pay." Outside, the blinking streetlight flickered like a heartbeat. Shadows stretched longer across the pavement. The city breathed heavy, unaware that vengeance had already begun. And in the silence he prepared for the next. But the system was already moving, faster than him. The morning after the first cop's death, the news hit. Officer killed in late-night mugging. Suspected gang activity. Reporters read from teleprompters with flat eyes, spinning tragedy into narrative. No mention of Alina, no mention of what he had done. The story bent instantly, warped into retaliation, gang crime, another sign of a city in decay. On talk radio, callers said the streets were safer without him. Others said it was proof the city needed more police, not less, not justice, never justice. The police tightened ranks. Patrols doubled. Internal whispers spread. Someone was hunting uniforms. Locker rooms went tense. Jokes stopped. The braggart laughed less now, his arrogance cracking, though he still forced smiles for cameras. The terrified one grew thinner, cheeks sunken, eyes darting at every shadow. But the system covered them. Statements framed the death as random. The chief announced full investigations, while privately warning officers to keep quiet. The district attorney stood at a podium, voice smooth, assuring the city, this was unrelated to the tragic case from last month. There is no evidence connecting the incidents. The father watched it all on television, jaw tight, glass in his hand trembling. Every word buried her deeper. Every headline smothered her name under lies. Outside, protests rose louder. People lit candles, chanted her name, carried signs. Her face painted on posters, her story whispered in vigils. But the media called it unrest. The mayor called it an organized attempt to destabilize the city. Cameras showed the crowd, but never her name, never the truth. She was everywhere on the streets, and nowhere in the news. He realized then he was alone. The silence around him grew sharper. Once, he trusted his men, old Mafia hands who had stood beside him in blood and fire. But shadows began to feel wrong. Eyes lingered too long. A conversation cut off when he entered the room. One night, a burner phone buzzed. A voice low, hesitant. "They know, boss. Not everything, but enough. Someone has been talking." He froze. "I do not know. But the system is moving. They want you gone. This is not about Elena anymore, it is about control." The line went dead. He sat there in silence, phone still warm in his hand. Betrayal was not new to him, but this cut deeper, because now it was not just cops. It was not just the city. It was someone close. Someone who had watched her grow up. Someone who had eaten at his table. The paranoia sharpened into knives. He began moving constantly, sleeping in safe houses, never the same place twice. Notes burned faster, phones smashed quicker. He trusted no one, but vengeance did not stop. The braggart was next. He followed him one night, across back streets to a diner where laughter rang too loud. The man bragged to younger officers, his voice echoing across the chrome walls. He laughed about resisting suspects, mocked justice, spat Elena's name like a joke. The father waited, watched. When the man left, The night was silent, alleys stretching like veins. The strike was fast. Close a burst of violence in the dark. Hands around his throat, pressing until laughter turned to choking gasps. For a moment he saw his daughter's eyes in the braggart's terror, wide, desperate, and he pressed harder, until silence swallowed the night. The body slumped in shadow. The father walked away, chest heaving, name whispered once more. Alina, but every act made the system stronger. The news did not call it vengeance. They did not even connect the dots. Another gang-style killing. Another random act of violence. Police at the podium promised safety, begged for public trust. Behind the walls of the precinct, whispers spread faster. They knew, they all knew, but they would never admit it, because to admit meant exposing rot deeper than they could contain. And the father, he felt it too. The tightening net, patrol cars idling longer outside safe, plainclothes shadows tailing him on streets. A man in his own crew watching him too closely. He could feel the betrayal growing. The terrified one became his obsession. The weakest link, the man who had not struck the fatal blow, but had stood there, silent, silence that damned him more than fists. He watched him from across streets, through foggy windows. The man's hands shook when he lit cigarettes. He jumped at small noises. He looked like a ghost already, but striking him meant risk. The system was circling, closer every night. One evening, a knock at his door. An old friend, scarred face, tired eyes. "They are coming," the friend whispered. "Not with cuffs. With bullets. You have rattled them too hard. They cannot let you keep going. You need to disappear." The father stared. For a moment, silence. Then he shook his head. "Disappear? She did not disappear. They made her vanish. And now they think they can vanish me." His friend hesitated. "I have stood with you in wars. But this you cannot win this. Not against all of them." The father looked past him, into the dark window where his own reflection glared back. Hollow eyes, heavy breath. "I do not need to win," he said quietly. "I need them to remember." The friend lowered his head. "Then you are already gone." And with that, the betrayal was confirmed. Because warning came too late. Because the system was already in motion. The nights blurred into paranoia and blood. Long silences where he sat in empty rooms, finger on the trigger, waiting for footsteps that never came. Then bursts of violence, sharp and brutal. When shadows became targets. Men who betrayed him. Men who lied. Men who laughed. Each kill brought no relief. Only heavier breath. Only louder silence. The city painted him as a ghost. A story, a rumor. Gang retaliation, criminal infighting. But in truth it was one man, one father, alone. The system resisted. It tightened. But still, he moved. Still, he whispered her name into the dark. Still, he struck, until every shadow knew. Silence was no longer safe, and the war had only begun. But wars always end the same way, in silence. Only one remained, the terrified one, the one who had stood there, frozen, while Elena begged for her life. The man who never lifted a hand, but whose silence was heavier than fists. The father hunted him carefully. Weeks of watching. The man's routine was predictable. Precinct, home, corner store, back again. A ghost walking through his own life, guilt pressing his shoulders down. His wife worried, his children whispered, his neighbors avoided his eyes. He was alive but not living. The father waited until the city fell quiet, until fog rolled thick over the streets, until the man was alone. The trap was simple, an anonymous call, a whisper into the terrified man's ear. "Meet me. I know what happened that night. I know what you did." And fear did the rest. The warehouse was old. Rust-streaked metal walls, broken windows, floor stained with oil and time. A single fluorescent bulb flickered overhead, buzzing, blinking, fighting to stay alive. Shadows stretched long across the concrete. The cop entered first, flashlight trembling in his hand. Each step echoed. He called out once, voice cracking, "Who is there?" The silence swallowed it. Then the door slammed shut behind him. The father stepped from the shadows. No mask, no disguise. His face bare, lined with grief, rage carved into bone. The cop froze. Light shook in his hand. His breath quickened. "You, yes," the father said, his voice low, steady, cold. For a moment, silence. Just the buzz of the bulb, the sound of two men breathing. Then violence erupted. The father struck first. A fist to the jaw, bone cracking. The flashlight clattered across concrete, spinning light into chaos. The cop fell back, scrambling, hands up. "Wait, please, please." But the father did not wait. He grabbed his collar, slammed him into the wall. Concrete dust rained down. Fist to ribs, knee to gut. Each blow echoed with memory. Her cry, her breath, her silence. The cop gasped, choking. I did not touch her. The father paused, knuckles dripping blood. His chest heaved. His daughter's face flickered in his mind, laughing alive. He almost let go, almost. But then he remembered her silence under red-blue lights. You stood there, he growled. You watched. Tears welled in the cop's eyes. His voice broke. I had no choice. They would have turned on me. You do not understand. If I spoke, they would have killed me too. The father's grip tightened. So you let them kill her instead. The cop shook, trembling, his whole body collapsing under guilt. I see her every night. I hear her voice. Please, I am already dead. For the first time, the father faltered. His hand dropped. He staggered back a step, breath heavy, eyes hollow. Had he become the same monster? A man who took lives, who silenced voices? Was this justice or just another crime buried under shadow? The silence pressed in. The bulb flickered harder, buzzing like a heartbeat about to stop. The cop, sobbing, crawled forward. Please do not kill me, please. I swear I never wanted it. I never. The father closed his eyes. He saw Alina again. Her laughter, her hum in the kitchen, her blood on the hood. When he opened his eyes, they were cold. The knife flashed once, then silence. The body crumpled against concrete, breath gone. The father stood above him, chest heaving, eyes empty. No triumph, no relief, only hollow silence. He stumbled back, knees weak, collapsing against the wall. His hands trembled, slick with blood, his or theirs. He no longer knew. The fluorescent bulb blinked above, shadows cutting his face into fragments. He whispered her name once. Alina, but no voice answered. No laughter, no humming, only silence. The revenge was complete. The men who killed her gone, erased, but her smile did not return. Her chair at the table stayed empty. Her voice stayed buried. The father's breath grew shallow, ragged. His chest felt heavy, each inhale harder than the last. He slid down the wall, legs collapsing, until he sat on the cold floor, staring at nothing. Was this justice? Or had he become the thing he hated? The silence did not answer. He lowered his head, eyes hollow, body trembling. For the first time since her death, tears came, not rage, not grief, just emptiness. The buzzing bulb flickered once more, then went out, and in the dark, the father breathed shallow, slower, weaker, until silence claimed him too. The bulb went out. The silence swallowed him whole. When the city woke, the story was already written. Headlines spread like disease. Gang war escalates, several officers killed. Anchors spoke with grim voices, eyes polished and empty. They did not say her name. They did not say his name. They did not say daughter, father, grief, or justice. They said retaliation, organized crime, urban unrest. On talk shows, experts debated numbers, not lives. 5 dead officers, 1 vengeful man. Statistics to be filed, debated, archived. His story flattened into a case study. Her story erased entirely. But in the streets, the truth refused. Silence. The father stood at her grave. The cemetery stretched wide, trees whispering in the cold wind. Her name etched into stone, dates too short, too cruel, fresh flowers wilting under frost. He stood still, hands heavy at his sides, staring at the carved letters. He whispered once, Alina. The sound broke in his throat. Behind him, the city raged. Protests filled the streets. Drums pounded, voices rose, chants shook glass in shop windows. Her name thundered in unison, hundreds shouting what the news refused to print. Candles lit the night, small flames trembling in cold air. Phone screens glowed, recording every chant, every tear. He turned slightly. Through gaps in the cemetery's iron gate, he saw them, faces lit by candlelight, fists raised. Her mural stretched across brick nearby, her smile larger than life. Her eyes watching over the crowd. Paint still wet, streaked with rain, shadows stretching across her cheek like scars. She was remembered, not as they painted her in headlines, not as they buried her in reports, but as she was, loved, alive, human. And yet, he felt nothing but hollowness, because justice did not bring her back. He had hunted them all, erased them, one by one, brutal, final, merciless. Each strike whispered her name, each death etched her memory deeper. And yet, standing at her grave, the silence was louder than ever. Her chair at the table remained empty. Her laugh did not return. Her hum did not echo in the kitchen. The house stayed dark, cold, lifeless. Revenge had not resurrected her. It had consumed him. The media twisted even his end. When his body was found in the warehouse, collapsed in shadow, the story wrote itself. Crime boss found dead after wave of gang-style killings. No mention of Alina, no mention of what they had done to her. The police department released statements of sorrow for their fallen brothers. The district attorney spoke of order restored. The mayor called for unity in the face of violence. Unity built on silence. Unity carved from lies. And the father became myth. A monster in their story. A ghost whispered about in bars. He went crazy, they said. He was always dangerous. But in the protests, in the chants, in the candlelight vigils, another story survived. People knew, neighbors, customers, friends, they spoke her name, whispered the truth. They carried signs, they marched, they told their children, they painted her face on walls the city tried to scrub clean. The system buried truth under headlines, but truth still lived in shadows. The father stayed at her grave until night fell. The wind howled, the chants grew louder, the candles flickered, their glow bending across stone. His breath grew shallow, chest heavy, eyes dim. He knelt, hand pressed against the cold earth. I tried, he whispered. I swear to I tried. No answer, no warmth, only silence. His body shook, his breathing slowed. The cold seeped into his bones. He closed his eyes, and for a fleeting second he imagined her, there standing beside him, alive, smiling, reaching for his hand. But when he reached back, only emptiness remained. The chants thundered in the distance. Candles flickered, phone screens blinked, shadows stretched across her mural, and the father's breath faded into silence. Justice at a cost. A daughter gone, a father consumed, a city unchanged. The silence lingered, louder than screams. Shut up, or I will put a bullet through your teeth. The same sentence that cracked the night open, the same sentence that started the machine of silence and blood. It hangs now in empty rooms and cold corridors, a loop you cannot switch off. It lives in the buzzing of a dead bulb, the echo of a fist on concrete, the pause between a breath and the next. Her name fades in and out like a flickering security light. His footsteps slow. The mural watches. Candles gutter and phones record shadows. The city talks in statistics. The streets remember in whispers. The line that began it all is the echo that never leaves the place where justice was supposed to live. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, and share, and stay tuned for more stories.